Can we start? Oh. Okay. I thought they were doing semaphore or something. Okay. I know that you guys all really just want to network and talk in between sessions, but this actually is a session on the schedule, so we have to get started. This is the session on husband-wife writing publishing teams or power couples. I really wanted to call it what to do when your business is intimately connected. They didn't like that one. Okay, I'm Kevin J. Anderson. I'm the person in the middle, which that's what the M stands for, I think, moderator. We are three couples up here. We are all three married, although only the two at the end have decided to share the same last name. We are going to quickly introduce ourselves. I'm going to start with Danielle and Dakota, and then we'll go through. Okay, and this we're really sharing mics here.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Krout. I'm married to Dakota Krout. We own Martelle Press, which specializes in publishing lit RPG and game lit titles. We just had our 1-year anniversary as the company, but Dakota's been publishing since 2016, and I can let him talk about that.
Hi everyone. I'm Dakota Krout. I am married to Dr. Danielle Krout. So I am, as she said, I'm the author in the group. She is actually the CEO of the company, so she does a lot more, I don't want to say more work than me, just more, business than I do in a typical day. So it's going to be very interesting to share how that breakdown works today. So thank you.
Well, actually, Adam and Jeannette do share an actual last name. He just writes under a fake name. So, introduce yourselves.
So I'm James Hunter. This is my wife Jeannette, and I'm one half of Shadow Alley Press. We're a fantasy publisher. It's sort of a non-traditional fantasy small press publisher. We started out in 2015. I do most of it, just like Dakota and Danielle. Our sort of division of labor is sort of I write books, and then she runs a lot of the business stuff. It didn't start out that way. Initially, I kind of did everything. And then once we started making some money, we're like, wow, this could be a thing. She came on board full-time and did a much better job. God, so much better than I ever did on the business side of things. And it's grown pretty significantly from there. Now she does that stuff, but I'll let her talk about that.
You just talked about me.
I want you to talk about you too.
Hi, I'm Jeannette. As he said, I run most of the business side of Shadow Alley Press. I do marketing, finance, advertising, et cetera. Pretty much all of the things. I don't know what else to add in there. That's about it, because he took all my words.
Sorry.
As he always does. He's the word man.
You can keep the microphone. I'm Kevin J. Anderson, and my wife Rebecca Moesta. We just celebrated our 28th year of marriage. And we've both been published. We're both in New York Times bestselling authors traditionally. I've published 165 titles, both traditionally and indie. We've done a bunch of things. How many together? 34 books together or something. Where I think we're the only ones up here where we actually collaborate on books as well as individual books. So we're writers as well. We also are the publishers of Wordfire Press. I guess it's not a small press anymore. We've got 350 titles out and 95 authors. We also run the Superstars Writing Seminar, which is in its 11th year, a big writing seminar in Colorado Springs. And a whole bunch of other stuff, so I'll let Rebecca talk now.
Okay, I'm Rebecca Moesta, as you may have mentioned. Kevin has always known he wanted to be an author, like since he was yay high, and I knew that I wanted to be an author since I was a teenager, but I did not plunge into it like Kevin did. and I went and got myself a master's in business administration. So when I first met him, I started talking about how writing should be a business, and it wasn't cool back in those days because business was just, writing was just an art. But apparently this whole business thing has caught on, so.
Well, she's an author as well, and in fact, we met because I was an author and she was a fangirl. Well, yes, she was.
I so was.
But as she hinted, and this is really kind of important because she was on a panel about power authors this morning when one of the questions was what was the key turning point in your career, and she was the key turning point in my career because I had published, I don't know, 4 or 5 novels or something like that, and I was writing short stories, and I was the guy that thought science fiction writers we could be eccentric, we could do whatever we wanted to. I went to a black tie Nebula Awards banquet, and I didn't know you were supposed to dress up, so I honestly wore my R2-D2 t-shirt and blue jeans and sat next to some of the biggest names in science fiction at a banquet table. And I was too dumb to even be embarrassed. When she met me, she I think she had seen My Fair Lady too many times, and she decided that I was worth cleaning up, and kind of taught me to take this seriously as a business. And since then, we have really just constantly turned it into a business. And I just jotted down some stuff because after lunch here, we both skipped whatever the early afternoon sessions were and went back to the room. I edited 2 chapters of a brand new novel that I'm working on my laptop. She was on the bed doing a hard copy line edit on a 170,000 word fantasy novel that I've already finished, and she will tell me, no dear, it's not finished. Rebecca helped our assistant Marie put together a order for Wordfire Press, our publishing company, a big order for a Comic-Con that's coming up, so print books that had to be turned into Ingram Spark and then shipped out. And then she and I did a bunch of emails about the guest speakers and guest attendees at our Superstars Writing Conference. So that was all like the past hour. We're back in the room doing all these different things of all of our different businesses. And we just constantly do that. How do you guys, other couples here, and I'm going to give it to Rebecca too, how do you divide up your responsibilities? Who does what and who's responsible for what? Dakota?
I better get this right. So essentially, a big chunk of what we do is that I do a lot of the forward-facing or outward-facing things in the company. So if I'm going to be the face of the company, if I'm going to go out there and be the author, be the person who is, making loyal fans and making friends and making great connections and, going to conferences, I need to be the person who's doing that. And I know that's kind of redundant, but it's a thing. So, I have to go out and I have to interact and I have to bring in people. I have to do the acquisitions currently. Essentially what I do is I mainly focus on working with the creatives in our company. So within the company, I focus on working with the creatives. I work with our authors to create outlines, to refine stories, to determine blurbs, artwork, all of that fun stuff. And then I interact with fans. And typically what will happen then is I say, my job is done. Now Danielle gets to actually make that happen. So I hand over
The mic.
Yes, so he does a lot of the outward-facing work, and then what he brings to me is the product, and I really work to package that. So the way we've kind of divvied up the work is he's the extrovert, the one that brings in people and does the relational stuff, and then I'm the one who's the attention to detail, the one who's good at organization, and So with that, then I'm really responsible for making sure the book moves from the raw state to the finished, whether it's communicating with the editors, the artists, etc. So that's how we kind of break it up, is we focus on his extroverted ability and then my introverted ability.
I'm gonna talk this time, is that okay?
Yeah.
So actually, we run it's really funny, when we met Danielle and Dakota, it was like an instant connection because we do things very, very similarly, work in similar genres as well. So when it comes to our business, we do, I do most of the back end stuff, financing, although I do a lot of the marketing as well. So that's a bit forward facing, but we're both kind of extroverts. But generally what I tell people when they come into our company is that James is in charge of anything creative. If you're talking about an outline, you're talking about a story idea, you're talking about an art brief, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't know how any of that works. Don't expect me to be able to tell you what your format of your outline should be in. That's not something that I'm gonna know. When it comes to your royalty payments or your advertising campaigns or anything like that, that's something that I would then take care of. Anyone that's looking at doing this very seriously as a business needs to be looking at what their systems are. You need to look at what the positions are that need to be filled as if you had a company, as if you were a huge corporation that had all of these different tasks that needed to be done. This is something that we went through about a year ago, and we wrote down literally every position in our entire company and decided who was going to fill what role. Because we were running into a lot of, would you stop doing that? I already did that. Like, stop doing work that I already did. And it was really frustrating on both of our sides because it would be like a Facebook campaign, and I'm like, why did you just post that? I spent all day preparing that campaign, and in 5 seconds he had already posted something. So going through that and delving up those different jobs, like, really streamlined everything for us, because now we don't step on each other's toes. We each know what lane we're supposed to be in. We each know what tasks we're supposed to be doing. And then nothing in the company gets like kind of left out because we've looked at every single piece of what needs to be done, and we can accomplish that. And then it also makes it easy to hire someone too, right? Because you already have kind of a job description or a task or whatever.
Real quick. One of the things that's interesting, and this was a work in progress, sort of coming up with these and devising these company roles, and okay, what are very specifically the jobs that you were, the tasks that you were responsible for, what am I responsible for? And what we found out is, because it's good to have a big picture overview of your company and how it works. So, for example, I think this is an interesting thing, that dynamic that we have where she runs all of the marketing, but I am in charge of the marketing, like the overview of marketing, right? Because it's important that you have someone that you're accountable to. So even though she is the one who is actually doing as the technician, if you guys have ever read there's a book called The E-Myth, which really talks about how to systematize your business. And she is sort of the technician when it comes to the numbers, but then I talk about, okay, this is how I think we should market, and then she's responsible for doing those things. And similarly, on the creative side of things, I am in charge of the creative development of my personal projects, but also the other books. But then she is the person that I report to for, am I hitting my deadlines? Am I hitting my word count goals? Where is this project in the pipeline? Where is this project gonna hit our pre-orders? Is the cover art on time? And so it's important for us that even if it's not a thing that I specifically am supposed to do, that I have an overview knowledge about it, and that we're being accountable to each other, because that makes sure nothing sort of slips through the cracks. So that's one of the things that we've implemented that's been really, really helpful for us.
I just realized that dividing up responsibilities meant that we should actually have 3 people on one microphone and 3 people on another microphone. So that divides it up much more evenly. In our team, I think it's basically boils down to, I come up with these crazy ideas and go, how hard could it be? And Rebecca explains exactly how hard it could be after I've committed us to doing something. Rebecca, why don't you tell us about how we divide things?
We had a real system going until Kevin loves to say yes, because he's got limitless energy and limitless ideas. And once I start implementing a lot of those ideas, I find out very quickly I have limits, and then when he goes on to yet another well, we'll run these seminars and we'll be a publisher. And we were already full-time before all that happened. For many, probably decades before all of that happened. So he does a lot more of the out-facing work also, because over the years I've kind of pulled into myself and hunkered down, and I'm always behind on these projects we're committed to. So I'm the one that pays the bills and runs the payroll and interfaces with a lot of our employees, and we ended up having to hire assistants, one each, because we both had way more things than we could possibly do in a day, week, year, decade.
Well, but also we are several different entities, really. Like I myself am a very prolific best-selling author. I write 5 or 6 books a year, which I know sounds like nothing to Michael Anderle, but I write a bunch of books a year, and she edits every one of them. So we've got that, which is a full-time career. But we're also running a publishing house with 95 authors, and we release like 4 books a month in audio and hardcover and trade paperback and ebook, and that goes through. And so there's all the dealing with authors and the contract. And oh boy, don't ever deal with authors. Just don't. She is still okay. In 1994, I edited 3 Star Wars anthologies, which are the 3 best-selling science fiction anthologies of all time. I had this great idea that, well, we'll just divide up the royalty checks every 6 months when they come in. How hard can that be? We are still cutting royalty checks 25 years later, and every 6 months she's going, why did you ever agree to that? She's got to divide up whatever because we did it the hardest possible way. Divided up percentage-wise by the number of pages that their story covered, and so this person gets 17% and that person gets 22%.
Okay, that is fixed by an Excel spreadsheet.
How hard can it be? How hard can it be? But so she's got all of the paperwork and everything else coming, and she is also our IT person, because I'm in charge of doing the, honey, can you download the Sked app so I don't have to do that? And she does it, but I do bring her coffee every morning.
That is a division of labor. It's fair. Oh, what else was I doing? I had brilliant ideas until you stopped.
Well, there is the other, I am the out-facing person. I'm the, I have more energy, I run around and I meet people and I talk to people, and I don't think I'm generally a nice person. She does, so she puts me out there. And the funny thing was, when we first met, I was the introspective author who didn't want to see another person ever. I wanted to just write books and mail them and never do anything with it. And she's the one who dragged me out of my shell, saying, we have to be social, we have to have friends, we have to have parties, we have to go out in public. And so she forced me to do that, and then she like abandoned me and retreated.
Yeah, I had a bunch of surgeries and didn't get out as easily.
Go.
You did it again. Yeah, I was going to say something brilliant about royalties too.
How hard can it be? Royalties are fun.
Oh, and Kevin has about 15 things a day that, because most of the time our employees don't work inside the house, where he just walks up to me and says, can you change this on the website, because this author is really irritating me and it needs to be done right now. And he'll just walk in and hand me a pile of stuff, and then at the end of the day he'll go, how come you didn't get all those chapters edited? I did. Because I was doing those other 15 things. But it is kind of our system, because he can be his most creative best when he doesn't have to figure out each little tiny thing, and he hands it off. And sometimes we hand those things off once they come to us as well.
Well, and picking up on what you just said, I am the person that the authors come bitching to. I'm the person that gets the emails of why didn't this show up, and why isn't my picture on the website, and why is my book not out, and why, so I kind of have a Teflon, like, sure, I'll look into that.
And any of you whose pictures aren't on the website yet, just email it, okay?
Yeah, please. If you have any complaints, let me know. My email is reb@wordfire.com. Well, so another thing with the teams, and we've seen it many times in like celebrity actors and actresses when they get married, that there's often there's rises and falls in careers and stuff like that. And a lot of these celebrity marriages break up just because there's a lot of jealousy when one partner suddenly becomes more popular than the other one. How do you guys deal with, well, most of, like, James is the front face and Dakota is the front face. Do you have any jealousy? Do you care about the limelight or not?
If you don't know who I am, you should. But I do really appreciate Kevin relating us to celebrities. I was like, where is he going with this?
Who is at the front of the room and who is in the audience? You're a celebrity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Kevin. I just want to point out it's the second time this week that I've been called a celebrity. No, you cannot.
Because I want to share. No, this is important.
Because it's true. Like we are both really front facing, and oftentimes I'll get emails from conventions or other things that want me to come out and talk about stuff, and I'm like, hey, that's really not my department. Like, if you want me to come out and talk about marketing, you're dumb, because I don't know anything about that. Like, my wife is way better at those things. You should talk to her, and that's been one of the things that we have struggled with, actually, because I have no problem, saying, hey, if you want me to talk about how to outline a book, ask me how to outline a book. I can talk to you about that. But if you want me to talk about what your ACost is on your ad, that's not something that I'm going to be able to do comprehensively, because that's not my area of expertise. And so that's kind of a battle that we've been fighting for a long time, where I'm really always trying to point to Jeannette and say, hey, no, we really are, we're partners. Like, we are entirely in this together. And if you want us to come out, you should really have both of us come out, because we handle very different things. Our skill sets occasionally overlap, but oftentimes she's the expert that you're actually looking for on that particular issue, and you should be talking to her, not me. Just because I'm the author doesn't mean that I do all of that other stuff too. And so that is a thing that we have dealt with, because Jeannette, she is very front facing, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Oh, did you just whistle? I was just gonna say that this is where staying in your lane really comes into play. We talked about having different jobs and whatnot. I know what I'm really good at in our company, and I don't have to feel like threatened by that, because I know that he also knows that that's what I'm good at, and vice versa. So yeah, is it a little annoying when outside people are like, oh, we want James Hunter? I'm like, well, he's not going to give the best presentation, but okay. But you know what I mean? So you have to have your value in yourself and know what you're good at, and have your spouse support you in whatever it is that you're good at.
I also have to say, the jealousy thing is not a big thing. I do want people to kind of know who I am, but I am not comfortable talking about me at all. I want to say wonderful things about my husband. I do not ever want to have to say wonderful things about myself.
But you're so funny. Oh. Thanks. I'm going to start bringing you.
Yeah. Well, I did want. Rebecca does not like to be in the limelight. I mean, we've had many opportunities when she'll like, no, I don't want that. I get asked to be on podcasts or interviews or something all the time, and then they go, well, we want Rebecca too. And she's, no, I don't want to do that. So it's not a jealousy thing, but we do have something that we call the chopped liver syndrome, where they will invite me and they go, well, we don't really have room for Rebecca. I'm going, well, she alone, yes, I have a whole lot of credits and I'm the big name, but she alone has published 40 books, and she's a New York Times bestseller and an award-winning author, and I'm sorry, but she already outranks everybody else you've got on your guest list. But because she's just my arm candy, I guess. But the jealousy thing is, we're both best-selling authors. She just doesn't like the famous thing, but she does like to be included. If you're not going to contribute, you can just leave the panel.
I think we're a great team. We haven't really dealt with jealousy. I mean, he married me to be his sugar mama, so I have a PhD. I was working in pharmacology, and I was the breadwinner, and we had a...
Clarify that. So, while I joined school, taking 22 credits a semester, she was the breadwinner, yes. And so that was an entire joke that she was the breadwinner. I never expected her to take over and run the bills. Just saying.
If Rebecca wants to earn lots of money and pay all the bills, I'm just cool with that. Just fine with that.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry. He was in the Army, he started school, and I was in pharmacology research. So that was just what our life was at that time. He was going through college, and he likes to say he married me as his sugar mama for that reason. And then joke's on him, because then we both went full-time, and now we're both doing really well with this. So yeah, that was kind of crazy as well, though. Not jealousy, but just, dealing with the change, and I think this will tie into your question, sorry, Kevin, but about how we both decided to go full-time right around the same time. Like, we had our daughter, and then Dakota's like, you know what, I'd rather just stay home, work with my daughter, be with my daughter, and write. And so he did that in, I think, March?
Yep. And then, yes. So, from there, I said, okay, well, that's okay. I can leave my full-time job with, okay benefits and doing this, because Dr. Danielle over here is, she has the government job, she's got those benefits, the 401k, so I left my job, and a month later she did too. So I was like, okay, we still have safety nets, and they're gone. So that was, it was a bit of a struggle, just not because of anything that actually happened, but just the fear of something that might happen. And so, we're out there, and everyone around us was saying, you're both insane. You're leaving your jobs, you're leaving great jobs with great benefits for an uncertain future. I would, go around the neighborhood with my daughter, and people would say, oh, great, this is great, you're a stay-at-home dad, what's your wife do? Well, we both own a company together, and we take turns with the daughter. Yeah. So, and it's wonderful, of course. So, yeah.
And just kind of to tie that in,
Yes.
I mean, with us both leaving our jobs at the same time, essentially, it wasn't just from 100 to 0 kind of thing. We had those safety nets in place. This had been a discussion for a while, so I do really encourage going full time. It's just make sure you have
Do it
those.
their way. Do it their way.
Oh yes, they have a good story with this, but we had built up a savings. We had tested different series that my husband was writing, so that's a little piece of advice there if you're planning on doing that.
Real quick, just more interesting overlaps, because Danielle and Dakota are basically just us also.
Yes.
I am also a former vet, and I thought she was going to be my sugar mama, because she was also a chemist working in pharmaceuticals, and I fully expected to...
Writers and drugs.
It's a weird thing. It's weird how these things go, so...
Well, that actually was the question of the. I said, so how did this dream come about?
Oh,
You just said, I am going to leave my stable job with safety nets and make a big, wealthy bank account with an independent author career. We did this 96, something like that. We both had full-time jobs working for the government. We both had high-level security clearances. We both had benefits, retirement. We had a stable salary, all kinds of great stuff. But my writing career was taking off. I was getting book sales from traditional publishers. I was on the New York Times bestseller list. They were offering me these big contracts all the time, and obviously I wanted to write stuff about dragons and swords instead of writing respirator safety manuals, which is what I was doing. And we got to the part, well, there's a key thing in what I just said, and maybe some of your military stuff is relevant. We both had a security clearance. And that means that the government was really invested in us. And that means that they would do just about anything to keep us from quitting our jobs. And so I had a 5-day-a-week, 40-hour job as a tech writer. And I'm getting all of these books published. And the first time that I had this cover flap for a paperback book coming out, I just taped it up outside my office door, and everybody was just in awe and terror of me because they thought, because I had sold a mass market paperback mid-list science fiction book for $4,000, that I was suddenly going to quit my lucrative government job because all authors are rich. We all know that. We're all here. And so I played that. I just went, well, yeah, you know, I can always have a writing career if you make my job too uncomfortable here. So they kind of bent over backwards. And I had my 5-day-a-week job, and I said, I'm sorry, I need more time to write. So I changed it to 4 10-hour days instead of 5. Well, the irony was I was always putting in 10-hour days anyway. And so I got 4 10-hour days, and that wasn't enough, so then I went to 3 10-hour days. And then, because she was in the same job, and we were both tech writers, then we decided to job share, and then we finally, it's like sliding with your fingernails on the edge of a cliff. Then I finally quit because I could still ride on her benefits because we had health insurance and retirement and everything. And then she was getting all these book contracts, and so then we finally, to the point where we had a bunch of book contracts, we had an entire year's worth of expenses in the bank. And that's when we quit our jobs. And now, it's been 20-some years later, and I just spent a year getting my MFA degree so that I could take a job as a university professor teaching online, because we really want health benefits. Because we were spending $24,000 out of pocket a year just to pay for our health insurance. So I'll go back, and I will pass it on after this, I'll go back to saying, yes, you all want to be full-time writers, and yes, it might seem like a great idea to quit your stable, lucrative job because you want to be writers, but do not underestimate how expensive that safety net is to maintain from years on, because now I'm loving this little online class, and we got better health benefits than I ever had in my entire life, and now I can get the wooden leg I've always wanted. We can get well, she's getting her foot surgery a week from tomorrow and stuff. So anyway, so how did you guys take the plunge? Who wants to? Jeannette wants to.
She's almost crying.
James loves telling this story, so I'm going to let him tell this story, but I get to interrupt whenever I want.
All right, you can. our experience is vastly different, and it's built on just lots of poor life choices. So she was working for a pharmaceutical company, good money, good benefits. We decided our life is awesome. We should ruin that, and so we decided that we were going to move internationally, and we were going to do international aid work. We had a young daughter, so we moved to Dakota. She quit her lucrative job, and we moved to Thailand, and we're dirt poor. Living in this little concrete shack in Hoi Quang, and well, I mean, we have different opinions on that.
It was a roach-infested 2-story townhome.
Yeah,
but it was concrete.
Not a pleasant place, and so that's when I started writing because Thailand is a partially restricted country, so all of the things that I was wasting my time on, like video games and friends and life, I didn't have that anymore, and so I started writing, and we sort of fell into self-publishing. We became accidental experts in self-publishing while we were living in Thailand before we knew any of this existed at all. And I started out in urban fantasy, and I had published a couple of books. I'd come up with a marketing plan. We had to save for months and months and months because we were making no money at all. For 3 months we had no furniture and just had our little baby, and we sat on the floor and ate off of.
You sat on your baby?
Well, she sat on us more than anything without the furniture. But but we came up with a marketing plan and had executed it, and my first couple of books had done well. And then we decided her dad got sick, and so we had to leave the field that we were working in really suddenly. and they said, hey, this is a terrible idea because you were pregnant. She was 6 months pregnant at the time, and you're going to move internationally, and we're going to have to fire you both, so you'll just be international hobos. That's probably not a good life choice. And we're like, you don't know good life choices. We're going to do it anyways. So we just doubled down, and we moved back because we wanted to be with her dad. And we were like, well, what are we going to do so we don't live under a bridge? And we were like,
We had to live with my parents for 6
this is true.
months.
We lived with our parents for 6 months with a toddler and her being
And a
pregnant
baby.
and a baby, and we're like, well, no one's gonna hire you because you're pregnant. So I guess we're just gonna have to try to make this book thing work so that we're just not homeless. And we were really banking on this thing working, and so I kind of doubled down and started writing more books. And as soon as she had Sam, she kind of came on board, and somehow, by the grace of God, we managed to turn it around and turn all of those very, very poor life decisions, a series of them actually, into a really lucrative business. And now we make over $500,000 a year. We're up at $750 this year, and all of that from just being absolutely reckless. So you can do it.
Some people prefer the saving method, you know. We prefer the light the bridge on fire. So you can't have any options to go back. No, I think I just like to share, and I share this with our team all the time, that I can remember we were getting ready to move back into our house, and we had a $900 month. From publishing. I remember this, a $900 a month, and I thought, how are we going to do this? You know, because you can see, Amazon tells you 2 months in advance. You're like, here it comes, here it comes. This is going to be great. But you, as an author, you need to be really on your finances. If we had not been saving from our better months before that, we would have been in a really bad way. So yeah.
So top that one.
No. So I will say that James has an amazing. They just have amazing stories. Everything from their wedding, everything from the time they met till now. I mean, between getting married in a blizzard to dysentery to running to a fat-tailed scorpion that should have killed him a few times, to running through the desert strapped with meat while wild dogs are chasing, or while they're in the area.
It's a very long story.
It's a very long story.
We've got 4 minutes left, so you're just gonna have to leave that on a
It's
cliffhanger.
life stories. I just can't do it. So, no. Do you have another question?
Yeah, okay, I do want to get to another question, because so now, if you're partners and it's your business and that's your entire life, so like all day long, all we're talking about is our stuff, and I'm assuming it's similar. If you have a situation like that, how do you find time for like family life or real life? Because you don't have a normal relationship, you have a business partnership, everything that you do depends on being successful. And how do you get your family life into it? How do you make time? And you make poor life choices, so I'm going to ask them.
Okay, so this is kind of okay. Really quick, she says. So for about a year, it was just 8-hour days. You know, it was just huge, long, attacking the work with every second we could put into it. And so we have had to scale back. We put in a 12-hour maximum work day. No more than 12 hours or else you're in trouble, basically. And now we're scaling back further. So what we're having to do is realize that we need to delegate. And there's so much work that 2 people, 3 people just can't do it if you want to expand and have more authors. And if you're doing it just by yourself, this might be different. So we are looking at ways to expand our infrastructure so that we can have more authors, more books, more titles, all of this other stuff. So for me now, what we tried to do is, because we went full time so that we could spend time with our kid. And so a couple months ago, I just said, I'm getting so down because I don't get to spend time with my kid. Can we alternate those days that our nanny isn't here so I can spend some time with her? So now every Thursday in the morning, you will see instead of Grace in her booster chair at the table, eating very quietly and patiently, and then getting down. She now sits on my lap while I read a book, and she has a bottle in one hand, and I'm feeding her grapes in the other. And I mean, it's Daddy Daughter Day Thursday, so it's a big deal for me. So yeah. So basically, you have to make time for your family if you want time with your family.
You can't answer.
I didn't know if Danielle was gonna say anything. Yeah, schedule is really important. Prioritizing is really important. Knowing what you want, knowing what your spouse wants, knowing what your kids need, and then making sure that that's a priority. So every Friday we have a date night. That was not always the case. Obviously we lived internationally, we had no help. But now we make it a super priority that every Friday night we go out on a date, and we really try not to talk business because we get that all week long. You know, and then weekends, in the beginning, I mean, we worked really hard. We worked 7 days a week. We were grinding all the time. We decided that was not sustainable. And so this year we made it a priority. We actually started having weekends rather than, you know, like a few hours on a Wednesday with our kids. So we actually have weekends again, which is insane. And sometimes I feel like it's too much time off. But yeah, so you just have to make your schedule, you know, and stick to what your family needs and make sure to prioritize that.
You got 45 seconds.
Oh, there was a lot of wheeling and dealing for us because of us both being creatives and both having writing and then having the business that we fit into all the cracks in between. And so we had to kind of, when he had a deadline, I had to do a little bit more work and batten down the hatches. And we had other parents where we'd say, you know, I've got a deadline, can you just have the boys playing at your house this weekend, and then we promise to take them 2 weekends from now, things like that. And also Kevin's obsessive, so I had to allow him a couple of hours of writing time, even on Easter and Christmas and birthdays and everything like that, just so that he could feel like he had time to be social with family.
All right, well, it says that we're at our time, so we had a million more things to say, but we didn't bicker with each other, so we were good. Ish. Thank you all very much, and we'll be around and we can answer other specific questions. If you're difficult questions, ask Rebecca, and have a good conference.